Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. I'm holding up my end of the deal. I did say in the last video that if we got uh, first place or something out of the pro quests that I was going to play in, I would make a video showing the deck that I played as well as a bunch of the stuff about the event, what I got, how I did, all of that. I didn't win exactly. I decided, me and my opponent in the finals decided to split, with him getting the invite and me getting the gold foil opening towards the end of the video. But I think that is definitely enough for me to say that I kind of did do what I wanted to do, which was win something at the ProQuest. So I'm going to be here talking about probably my favorite deck in this format, Katsu the Wanderer. I did make a Katsu video this set. It is a little different from the last video that I did on Katsu. Instead of just going over the deck like I normally do, which I will do, I'm going to be going over the sideboard plan and sort of the game plan that the deck plays, because this Katsu list is very different from some of the lists that you're currently seeing Katsus take, since this deck is not on Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, it is purely on Mask of Momentum. So with all that said, let's get started by taking a look at the deck. So I'm going to do a brief just run through. I'm not going to read the hero. I'll talk about key cards, of course, but I mean, there's really only one change from the last video. Of course, Katsu's our hero. We have Mask, Heart and Cross Strap, Breaking Scales, Breeze Rider Boots, and 2 Kadachis for our equipment. And it's pretty much the exact same deck list, just with one change in my deck list before. I did play one copy of Ancestral Harmony. However, I decided to swap it out for one copy of Warmonger's Diplomacy. I still never played it, but it was in here in case I did need it, and I felt that in case I played against something like Azalea, the Warmongers would actually be pretty useful. I did not end up playing against an Azalea in the whole event, but it still is better than Ancestral, because this is not really the best Ancestral deck, since we're not trying to go as hard as the Pouncing Lynx decks. The way this deck generally wants to play is it wants to just play its normal Katsu combo lines. You want to go for your Surging Strikes into your whole deck, pretty much. Play any Gust Wave after into a Bonds. If you can't get that off, we have some 100 Winds in here, as well as Be Like Waters, and you can even start with the Descendant Gust Wave into a Bonds to just get your baselines going. Flusterfist is a good Bonds target when we can't pull off a Dishonor combo, as well as just like a small kick of 4 could be pretty nice to tutor out off of Katsu or the Bonds. Pretty much everything in this deck wants us to go for some sort of combo. Be Like Waters are extra Surging Strikes, especially if we have Ancestrals to kick them over, considering we can't Breaking Scales them. Whelmings at 7 copies, 3 red, 3 blue, 1 yellow. I felt this was a good line because the 1 yellow can definitely be something that people don't expect. If we get a random 7th Gust Wave throughout a game, it could be pretty nice. Sort of similar to the 1 yellow Descendant, but this one is a chain starter, so that one's kind of important, and people do already expect that. 5 bonds because we want more bonds than we do Descendants. No blue bonds since we're not on Pouncing Lynx, as I said before. We have 16 blues in the deck. Our 3 Flusterfists, our 3 Whelmings, 3 Dishonor, 3 Lord of Wind, 3 Winds of Eternity, and our 1 Warmongers. Changes I would make to this deck before I briefly go over the sideboard real quick is that 3 Art of War did feel like a little too much. I think I will end up going down to 2 Art of War. I think going less than 2 might be a mistake. I was considering cutting this card entirely after the event, but I definitely do feel like it is necessary to play at least 2 copies. I think if I go down an Art of War, I will also go down the Warmongers and play 2 Concealed Blade. And then after that, I want to try going to 2 blue Flusterfist to stay at 16 blues and going up another 100 wins or another Descendant Gust Wave. But that'll be something that I have to test. I'm just showing the list that I did play, and I think this did work out very well. Concealed Blade helps us push over Be Like Waters. Even though we're not playing it for the actual effect, it's still a blue block 3 that costs 0. So, it's an actual useful blue. Every blue in this deck, except Flusterfists and the Whelmings, are actually playable. Since we're playing Dishonor, we're playing Lord of Wind, the Warmonger is playable. We're definitely playing Winds. I played this card a lot, especially off of just like go wide turns. It's the best search if you have 100 wins as your last hit, because you can just threaten this, get them back into your deck to have them later. So thinning down some of those numbers is pretty important, but I think you do need the blue Whelmings. Looking at the rest of the deck, the sideboard, we are going to be talking about this a lot more because I did set up my sideboards that when I post, if you look in the description, of course in all my videos, I try to have the deck list. If I forget, I'm sorry. If someone reminds me, I'll put it in. But I will have this deck list in the description. The link to this list exactly, that will show you sort of what you want to be sideboarding. I will be going over that in the video as well, so don't worry. But this is the sideboard that we're working with. I wouldn't change anything about it. I think this is sort of just the perfect sideboard. Possibly move Tunic to main board. I ended up playing Tunic a lot more than Crossstrap. But that's whatever. Pretty much, if you ever go first, Tunic is better than Crossstrap. But if you ever go second, depending on the matchup, Crossstrap is better. You end up playing Tunic more than Crossstrap, but I still think Crossstrap is the main board choice because the meta right now is a lot of really fast decks. Of course, we'll talk about that when I talk about the sideboard plan. 2AB, because if you're swinging double Kodachi versus Kano, you're probably losing the game. And then Tide Flippers for our 1AB matchups. 8 defensive options, because I hate Victor. Every Katsu player does. And then our aggressive sideboard stuff, 3 CNCs for Prism and such. And also decks we want to disrupt Arsenal. We need at least 1 Popper. Double Strike is a card that's really good versus several matchups that want to block you to deny Mask. Since this card, you say double Kodachi, they block second Kodachi. You throw a double strike, they have to do it again. It gets a card out of their hand, almost guaranteed. It's still really, really good. It's a 0 you can also discard to Katsu. E-Strike, it's just a good Katsu card. Several reasons why we're playing it. 1, Razor, this gets people. I definitely got someone in top 8 with it, so Razor is definitely a tool that will stay in the deck at a 1 of for a long time. Having more than one's a little weird because it does cost 1. You can't discard it with Katsu, so only 1. And if you draw it really early, it doesn't do much throughout a game. You want to find this on a combo turn or like late game to surprise your opponent. And then 3, Mugenshi. We'll talk about Mugenshi. I think this card's extremely good, especially with Breeze Rider boots. But we're not bringing in 3 every matchup. Sometimes we will bring in 2. So that's going to be the deck overview. Let's go over to the matchups. The main meat of the video, probably why you're watching, is to actually learn how to play the deck versus certain matchups. Next, before we talk about before I show you the gold foil that I opened, because I do have a clip of it, and move on to the outro, I do want to talk about the matchups that I played. My event was 5 rounds with a cut to top 8. I believe it was 19 players. So, round 1, play against a local. Of course, you go to a big event, you always are going to play against locals. Played against a local on Rhinar. Won that matchup fairly easily. My opponent did forget to bring in their Apex Bonebreakers, so they had less block. They brought in Gambler's Gloves instead. So I was able to just hit with many things because they didn't have as much fridge to block, get my hit effects, run them over. Pretty standard stuff. I think if they brought in the Bonebreakers, it would have been harder for me to win, but I was in a pretty good spot. I still had a few really good hands in a row, so even with the Bonebreakers block, it would have been harder for them to actually win the game. Round 2, I played against a KO. KO is a matchup I think is pretty favored for Katsu. Simply because KO just has big numbers. They have no hit effects. They don't care if you block or not. But Katsu is a deck that forces opponents to block, and if a deck does not want to block, like KO can, but doesn't want to use too much, could be very devastating. Their fleshbag turn was to save them from a fairly small turn on my part, but still a pretty devastating one. So on later turns, I could set up way bigger combo lines that they would have had no disruption for. The main way you want to be playing into Brute, just any Brute, because all of them have fleshbag, is you want to be, thanks Windows for the notification, but into Brutes, you want to be throwing out combo lines that you sort of have protected. What I mean by that is you have a key piece in your arsenal that if they decide to fleshbag, it won't mess up your combo. Like if you surging and you have a gust wave in arsenal, you want them to gust wave your surging because you want them to fleshbag your surging so you can still play the gust wave. If you have a bonds, you want to hope that they fleshbag your gust wave so you can play the bonds after. That's sort of the main gameplay. Normally they will fleshbag your surging, so it's better to have the descendant. And then hopefully you hit one because then you can tutor the bonds. And that also lets you set up an arsenal after, because if they hit a good card, that means you just have an arsenal for your next big turn, which is definitely very important. I drew very well that game, had a good amount of Art of Wars, good amount of pressure, and I won that game. Round 3, I played against another KO. I did lose. I drew a little worse, and they definitely drew a lot better. In round 2, my opponent did not draw the most amazing hands. They didn't find too many Bloodrush Bellows. They found no copies of Cast Bones, but my opponent in round 3 did, so they got me pretty fast since they drew them pretty early in the game. Into round 4, I played against a Fatigue Azuri. I did not know it was a Fatigue Azuri going into it, so I brought in the normal Azuri plan. I did play it a little wrong, and it sucks because I drew my defensive options towards the end of the game when they were not useful anymore because my opponent already ran through some codexes, and it sucks. I also decided to bring in Reinforce the Lines instead of the Flickflax, which I will put in the notes instead. That, first of all, that was a mistake by me. I should have brought in the Flickflax instead. I was being very careful of Shred, but I should have thought more about. I was being very careful of like Shred, CNC, that type of stuff. I will put it in the notes for the Azalea and the Azuri matchup to be wary of them and bring in which one you think is better. I, at the time, thought that was better. I think Flick is better into Azuri, and I have on both of them to play Flick, but I think Reinforce is probably a little better into Azalea. It really depends on the matchup and what you think you're going to be doing that game. It is really dependent on how you feel. So I will put that in the notes when I upload this video and link this. But I did bring in now, if I was on Flick Flax, I would be fine drawing them late. But because I was on Reinforce, I got punished for drawing them in the bottom third of my deck, and I did end up losing that game. So round 5 is a win and in. I'm 2-2, but I'm 8th place in seeding because they posted the standings. And I'm the highest seed 2-2 player. But it's still a win and in because if I go 2-3, there's no way I top 8. So I play against another local, another KO. So third KO for the day, and I do get there. I do have some really good hands, and they what was their fleshbag turn? I don't think their fleshbag turn was as disruptive, and it let me set up really nicely for a later turn because they hit something. I think I had 2 Gust Waves in hand, and they hit one of them, and I was able to set up for a later turn. But it was a very clean game by me, and I got there. So I was top 8 at 7th seat. Going into top 8, my first round was against the KO that I played in round 2. That game was the one where the Razor Reflex came in clutch. I had a turn of pitch a blue or I didn't pitch a blue. I just straight up played a Be Like Water because my hand was Be Like Water, Razor, a blue, I think a Descendant Gust Wave, and like an Art of War. So if I wanted to play, or something in an Art of War, some attack, I banished the Art of War. So if I wanted to pay for the Be Like Water, play the Art of War and the Razor Reflex, I would have needed to have all my resources, all 3. So I play the Be Like Water. They block it, I Art of War. Great. I get land the Be Like Water. I change the name. I get I believe I got a Whelming Gust Wave. Then I play the Whelming Gust Wave. They block 5. I raise, or they block 6 or something. I Razor it, get a card, and then I just take that turn from there. They don't fleshbag me because it's already super late in the turn. I'm only going to throw 1 more attack anyway. 1 or 2 more. Next turn, I block something, and then my arsenal is set up so I have Surging in hand. I have Descendant in hand. I have a card that I pitched for the Surging, and I have a Whelming in arsenal. I get to throw my Surging. They fleshbag it. I send the Descendant away for a later turn because it's intimidated, and I get to throw the Whelming from arsenal. And at that point, they're just so behind that I do get there. Top 4. This is the big one. I do play against Prism. Super close game. I did exactly what I said you need to do. You just need to play it really slow. Deal with the angels ever so slowly. I found with like 15 cards in my deck, I found my last CNC at a very key point. They had like no angels left. They kept a hand where they could threaten me with the Herald. And the 2 Heralds, if I didn't have a popper, I had the popper, I popped it. Then I had just a clean hand straight after. They have to block because they have no more angels. And I get there. Very, very close game. And I even had that mess up I did say earlier with the Halo and the Figment of Judgment. And then finally, going into the finals, I played against the person I played round 3. It was a long day. We decided to just split, with me getting second and still getting the gold foil, with him getting first and still getting the invite. So I think I played very well that day. I'm pretty self-destructive playing in big events. I don't eat or drink or anything. Next time I will definitely bring like a granola bar and a water. But now with all that said, it's time to take a look at my gold foil. So here it is. Hello everyone. We are here with the gold foil. This will be at the end of the video, probably. This is my first one, so we're going to open it. If I could open it. So, Nothos.
Ooh.
Take that. Very nice. So, like I said, I was very tired at the end of that day. I have literally zero reaction to actually opening that. I think I'm just going to end up selling it. I don't play much Guardian. I would have loved to get a Ninja card. Maybe I'll end up trading it for a Ninja Gold foil, maybe a Kodachi, or like a Breaking Scales or something. And then, depending on how much those are, getting a little bit of cash extra. I think a Nothos is one of the more expensive ones. But with all of that, I do hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. Again, the deck list will be in the description of the video if you want to try this out for yourself. If you want to print out the matchups, I will update the matchups before I post it, of course, with the things that I did say it would change with the Zuri and Azalea and such. But with all that, I will see you all in the next one. The Armory deck is up. I will talk about that next video. Then we'll do a Zuri. And then it might be time for the set review. Very close. So in the next few weeks, definitely watch out for that. Look out for the Armory deck review. Look out for the Azuri video. And then we'll talk all about Part the Mistveil, since the set is coming out very, very soon. Goodbye.